Members, this is my union card. United Brotherhood of Carpenters. It's 37 years old. Let me tell you a little something about the United Brotherhood of Carpenters. It was organized in 1881. A lot of the trades unions started back then. They didn't have a right to organize, so they met secretly in basements. And they pooled together to raise the standard of living of their trade. And they marched in parades with banners. And you know what? They were independent contractors, all of them. And they made a decision that if they just got together and pooled themselves together, somehow they could get some control over that workplace so that they could make the kind of living to support their family. Their founder was a fellow by the name of Peter J. McGuire. And he's probably better known as the founder of Labor Day. And they worked hard over the decades, and finally in 1935, our Congress under Franklin Delano Roosevelt passed the Wagner Act. And with the passage of the Wagner Act, now workers had the right to organize. And members, the middle class was born, as workers had the right to collectively get together and negotiate with their employer. And here in Minnesota, you know that up to 1970, our public employees didn't have the right to organize in Minnesota. They were all non-union. In 1971, this legislature and in this chamber, they changed it. You know what? It was a conservative majority. A conservative majority that passed PELRA into law. And I just have to ask myself, what has happened? What has happened to that conservative majority? I don't think we called them Republicans then, and we didn't have party designation. They just came here and they got elected and they caucused as a conservative or a progressive, but it was the conservative control of the state Senate that passed PELRA into law. And then in 1974, former Senate President Don Samuelson passed Minnesota's Little Davis-Bacon Act. And all of a sudden, on projects that are publicly funded, in whole or part, workers were guaranteed some kind of a floor of wages. You know, Senator Rosen, you indicated that daycare providers are confused. They're confused because there has been so much misinformation about this bill. All this bill does is the same thing that the Wagner Act did in 1935 and the same thing that PELRA did here in Minnesota in 1971. It just gives this group of workers that don't have the right to have a vote an opportunity to decide if they can form a union and form a bargaining unit so that they can bargain for some of the things that my union card has provided for me. My whole working career with the Carpenters Union, I've had health insurance provided for by my employer to a Taft-Hartley Labor Management Trust Fund. Members, in the first of every month, I draw a defined benefit pension fund because I am retired from there. Pension fund of over 30 years of contributions that my employer put into that. This union card put food on the table for my family my whole life. It bought that car that sits out on the south on the Capitol lawn. It put my kids through college. Because without it, you're alone. and you have no power to improve your standard of living because you stand by yourself. But in a union, you have the opportunity to get together, and there is power in numbers, and you can raise the standard of living of the whole. You know, I don't understand the deep divide about this bill. I don't understand some of the votes that have happened on this floor this year. I mean, I understand the vote against the tax bill. People didn't want to raise the income tax on upper income wage earners. I get that. But you know the vote I don't understand, and where I think you're running adrift, is we had a bill on the floor last week that Senator Eaton had that raised the minimum wage in Minnesota from $7.25 to $7.50 this year, and to $7.75 next year. And we couldn't get not even one Republican vote. Not one. I guess even $7.50 is too much money for a worker. I don't understand it, but I understand why this majority caucus has got the majority, because you cannot stand only for the wealthy. Members, I urge a green vote and give this class of workers the same kind of rights that were given to American workers in 1935 and Minnesota public employees in 1971. Vote green.